I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Champaign County Board Community Violence Prevention Task Force. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Carter, Esri, Furtado,
Here.
Lakshin,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Michaels, Patterson.
Here. All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and addendum. Do I have a motion?
I will move.
Second.
I forgot there's only.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right. Next on the agenda is public participation. Are there any members of the public that'd like to speak?
Right, great. Maybe I'll sit back a little. I'll start over. Good evening, I'm Tim Bartlett. I'm the Executive Director at the Urbana Park District, and didn't really know you were having the meeting tonight. I would have gotten on the agenda and made a full presentation, but I will take the opportunity at this time to ask if the county board would consider partnering with the Park District on any level of support for our health and wellness center that will be built right next door at Prairie Park. We're planning on about a 25,000 square foot full service health and wellness facility that would be located in the park. Obviously, our opportunities for this part of Urbana, District 10, countywide, would be to attract people to come to the health and wellness center. We'd have indoor and outdoor amenities located in the park. Obviously, our programming base would certainly be directed to families and youth. And one of our main goals in our strategic plans is certainly focusing on community violence. So again, we would ask the county support in any level of support. Currently, we have about a $2.5 million gap in our building. Not certain of what levels you're all looking for, but again, any level of support for construction, ongoing programming, or any level of new programs would greatly be appreciated. We believe this health and wellness facility would be a long-lasting addition to Urbana, serve all of Champaign County, local neighbors, area communities and towns, and would ask if you'd give us the highest consideration. We'd be happy to submit any level of proposal or more information as you would need. I can answer any questions if you have any.
Tell me your name again.
Tim Bartlett, B-A-R-T-L-E-T-T, Executive Director at the Urbana Park District.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent?
Good evening. I'm Vincent Onduho, and I'm an employee at the Housing Authority of Champaign County. I work with the Youth Build program as a construction project manager, a trainer, and also the construction curriculum. I'm a teacher in that program, but I'm here today just to express the partnership with the Housing Authority and the First Followers and just other organizations in the community, but just to kind of touch on some of the things that are going on in the community, how we've collaborated with other not-for-profit as well as for-profit organizations in our community. But what has worked well from my vantage point, or the way I see it, is First Followers and the Youth Build program have been working together in numerous different aspects. But in particular here, that's going on right now is a training collaboration between the Youth Build, which what they are pre-apprenticeship program. They're a pre-apprenticeship status where they have an opportunity to learn construction hands-on as well as in the classroom. But what First Followers program has been able to provide here is an opportunity for our Youth Build students to come in and be trained by some of their seasoned individuals in construction. And so not only learning about construction, but also having an opportunity to shadow and fit in some life skills along the way, some employability skills through some of the first followers staff coming in and speaking with our young youth build students and giving presentations dealing with financial literacy as well as leadership components. So I'm just here to say today that as the collaborations are going forward, have been coming together in a situation that have been you get your funding wherever you can, but we're just still with a mindset of saying that we're coming together because our community needs it, and in particular, as it deals with our young individuals with gun violence, as well as mental health, as well as financial literacy and career paths and so forth. So I just wanted to, as not only a citizen of Champaign County, but also someone who works with an organization and then partners with other organizations within the community, would like to just kind of give a report and let this board know that there are some great things going on with some of the organizations that are coming together that are in this room. And I just want to come by and just share that, and thank you for your time. All right.
Thank you. Samantha?
I just got one question for you. Can you tell me the ages for the enrollment of your program, your construction program, and how long does it last?
The ages are from 16 to 24, and they are individuals who have from low-income houses and may have had a challenge with the penal system. Some of them have been the qualifications being ward of the state or even foster children. And the other question, how long? We have 6 months cohorts, and we will start another cohort. Mental toughness starts this second week in June, and we'll go for 2 weeks, and we'll start another session on the 5th of July, and it'll run 6 weeks. I'm sorry, 6 months, and the graduation date sometime in January. But we will have this present cohort will be graduating from Youth Build in July 19th. Will be their graduation day. And I'm saying graduation because there is another component, education component, aside from the construction curriculum, and they're able to achieve the high school diploma through the program as well.
And then they'll receive a certificate after the construction program?
Yes, with not only NCCR as the curriculum that we administer through the Department of Labor, but also they have an opportunity to earn forklift license, as well as OSHA safety certifications and flaggers for the highway department.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We have an information session tomorrow at the Housing Authority, one at 11 to 1, and then at 5 to 7 for anyone who wants to come and learn more about the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have William Kiles.
Good evening. Oh, I'm a little hyped tonight, huh? That's Starbucks coffee, right? Will Kiles, City of Champaign. I'm here coming in the capacity of the Champaign County Black Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and number one, for your service. I know that's the politically correct thing to say, but I truly believe that as a fellow elected official as well. I'm here on the behalf of a couple of initiatives that you're talking about. I actually am excited about whatever support that you're lending to Youth Build, because that really is offering a skill to an individual, and that skill is going to take, all of the conversations that we have about violence and a lot of the trauma and the negative things. Well, I can tell you as a business owner, sometimes lack of resources messes with your brain a little bit, and you're not thinking and talking in the way that you would talk, just because you got, responsibilities. So the ability to be able to give young men and young women skills, and those skills that can help them for life, is just something that is near and dear to me. Specifically, being that my dad was a residential contractor, 66 years old and still climbing up ladders, and learned that skill in high school. So when he graduated from high school, his degree automatically meant something, because he took that skill and then he took care of a wife and 4 other children, and was able to put us in a position where, as God would have it, I'm a product of that labor that he put in, and I'm able to talk to you today. So skills pay the bills. I'm also here to talk a little bit about I know it's down the agenda, but the H3 initiative. Obviously, this tonight is a city council meeting tonight, so I won't be able to be during that part where they talk about that, where you all discuss that. But I want to lend a support to whatever lends to collaboration in our community. And there's a lot of pieces to that first follower H3 connection that I'm excited about, particularly, again, the ability to talk about entrepreneurship, the ability to link to resources, the ability to build skills. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the other organizations on that, because I believe that they all play a part as we talk about making our county a better community, particularly in the entrepreneurship space. I will tell you, or lend a couple of things. I've had a number of conversations on how can we improve the plight of African American business in our county, in our state. Well, number one, I think that we have to actually agree that you have to be able to say African American. Too often, what happens is we have these big initiatives, and they're linked all together, so they don't even hit the target audience. So if you had there have been plenty of business programs that are called minority, and I understand why people say minority. But I'm going to tell you that over the years, because we haven't been specific, even the black folks that fight for those programs don't really get to benefit from those programs, because we've broadened that circle. So anytime that we can be specific, it's critical and important. The second thing I would say is consistent policy. Consistent policy is critical. I was talking to an individual and talking about the impact of policy and studying some things across the board, and came to the conclusion that if a person doesn't have to do something, then they're not going to do it. So we can talk about meeting with primes and meeting with subs, and we can go back and forth on that and talk, and our results, the proof is in the pudding. So all of the municipalities that I would say across the state are struggling with increasing African American participation, because we don't have consistent policy that actually helps build that business. I think that's something that's sustainable and that would be critical. And it's not low-hanging fruit. It's very difficult, particularly when you talk about implementation. What does 65 or 70 miles an hour mean to a person who needs to go 90 miles an hour without enforcement? So that enforcement of that policy is just as critical. The conversations of access to capital, access to continuous education, building not only skilled businesses, but access to building skilled employees. We need powerful employees as well, is something that we can talk later on at a different meeting. But with my last 42 seconds or 37 seconds and counting, I would say that anything that we can offer in these spaces, particularly as it pertains to policy, good policy, and being able to implement and willing to implement even when someone says that, you know what, this policy is terrible. An influential person comes in and changes the game. That we've seen that happen. So without enforcement of policy, good policy, it's difficult to improve the situation. But the work that you've done, I thank you for and look forward to seeing us do more work together.
Thank you. James. Oh, James Corbin. Couldn't read your handwriting, man.
Which one is on? Both? All right. How you doing? My name is James Corbin. I usually go by the acronym of TIGER. Work with First Followers. I'm an Urbana resident and a homeowner here. I'm just here today to speak upon the entire H3 initiative, which is covering 5 pillars. One of the pillars that I want to address right now is economic development and the need for more assistance as well as more programs surrounding economic development, training on behalf of the entrepreneurs that come in. Well, like Will said, the title or the minority is a wide title. So we want to talk about specifically Black entrepreneurs that's coming in there. The majority of the ones that we see that come in for these classes are mostly women, Black women, because they are, one, they have the initiative and they see the need for making a presence known within the community. So I do respect that. But I have a brief article. I'm not going to read the entire article. And this article is titled, Black Entrepreneurs Are the Key to Reducing Wealth Inequality. It's by Ms. Connie Evans, contributor. And this is from the Huffington Post. And I'm going to just a couple of segments in here I thought was very interesting, such as the American Untapped Opportunity for Success. This was produced by the Kellogg Foundation. It was a report, and the report set out to analyze the strength and potential of Americans' 2.58 million Black-owned businesses who were identified. They identified the challenges they face as well as opportunities facing Black business owners, and the effectiveness of the programs that were designed around these type of entrepreneur programs. So with that being said, acknowledge that there is an untapped economic potential and power in America. Black business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs. Black business owners is the greatest equalizer in wealth disparity in our study, which took more than a year to complete. Researchers found that the gap in average wealth between Black and white adults decreased from a multiplier of 13 to 3 when you compared the wealth of business owners by race. That's a big number, 13 to 3. Most Black-owned businesses are micro businesses, which I'm sure that Mark will address that. That's very important to remember that most of them are micro businesses. As well as if Black-owned firms were able to employ the same number of people that all privately held firms employ on an average, 1 versus the current 9, almost 600,000 new jobs will be created and $55 billion will be added to the U.S. economy. Now, why is that important? Because, like I said earlier, micro businesses are the key. 99% of the small businesses are micro businesses, or it's a large number. So if there's a lack of micro businesses within a community, this falls in the line of economic disparity. Makes sense, right? And what we're trying to do is increase those numbers. If we could increase the numbers of micro businesses, there should be a certain density within these communities, and our community is lacking that. Champaign is lacking its density right now. So the need for this is great. And this could be a great equalizer as well as an opportunity for us to create diversity, more diversity within our community. This is why I think that, the articles like this are very important, and studies by the Kellogg Foundation, which is a well-known, business school that looks at these type of disparities. So with my last 54 seconds, I'd just like to say, I just consider this, the entire A Street movement is actually moving toward the health and wellness of a community. We want to see a stronger, vibrant, more welcoming community that offers opportunity for everybody, as well as the kids that's coming up. Because and we know that poverty as well as violence is tied to economics. They all go hand in hand. So, and with that being said, I'm done. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tiger. All right, seeing no more public comment, move on to the next item, communications. Does anybody have any communications for the group? Stephanie?
Yeah, coming here today and thinking about that, we were going to be at a meeting talking about community violence prevention. I was struck that today is the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. And thinking about the already in this country this year, there have been the murder of 12 trans people. Most of them are trans people of color. And I wanted to say that as we're thinking about community violence, the specificity matters. I think I wanted to echo what Councilman Kyle said, that we need to center dismantling the structures of anti-Blackness that are persistent in this community as we go forward with this. The importance of that, I think, was underscored by the horrific events that happened in Buffalo over the weekend, in which targeted or racist violence occurred. But also in the aftermath of that violence, the only grocery store that served that Black community was shut down. The target of that space was a space that community fought for a year. And I think that underscores the kind of thing that Tiger was talking about, the importance of Black-owned businesses, not just for the people who work there, but also the resources that they bring to the community. And to me, thinking about how all of these things intersect is the job of this board, thinking about how these things intersect with the small business task force that I know Samantha is on. I think Samantha's on every task force at this point, is really important. And I have to admit, in a month that I think has been very devoid of hope in a lot of ways, this committee, and knowing that I was coming here tonight, is one of the things that gave me hope. And it's time that this county start moving in this direction and catch up to things like what is happening already in Champaign. We are so far behind, and I'm encouraged that we're finally going to start catching up.
All right, Jim?
Thank you. I have some comments. It's disappointing that we were asked to come here and be part of a committee to discuss spending $1.5 million for community violence, as if we have had any real input in the agenda or help decide what groups are attending or how the money would be spent. Don't get me wrong, some of these groups may do just fine to help struggling families, but we have had no input on who is here, what might deserve the funding to fully represent our constituents' needs the way we should. Many of the people we represent are very concerned about community violence, even to the point of not even wanting to leave their homes or go downtown for fear of being shot in our community or neighborhoods. We need to make sure that we fund our most important priorities with the $1.5 million that can most likely help and protect the public. We have a serious need for funding in law enforcement and corrections to work on and support our county jail. The people shooting up our community aren't those seeking help for their families. They're the people we need to get off the street to protect those families. We seem to want to ignore that we are being forced to close the downtown jail because our corrections staffing levels are in such crisis we can't properly staff the jail and are forced to work far too many hours of overtime because many people have quit. We cannot afford to continue to risk the safety of the staff and those incarcerated by continuing to understaff the jail. We need to fund a proper plan to retain and recruit staff. While the plan to move more people out of the county will help, it's a mere Band-Aid and more than doubles the cost of the county to housing people away from their attorneys and families, which sometimes in itself hinders the opportunity for counseling programs and positive change in a person's lives so they might not reoffend. Also, we need a properly sized, functioning jail to create an incredible belief in violent criminals they could go to jail. We're only a paper tiger to those that have little fear to shoot off multiple rounds on our streets, unconcerned by innocent victims because we have far too few police corrections officers. They see us building a jail that starts out at 30% smaller than our current jail capacity or numbers require, and doesn't provide classroom space for the 30 programs to serve people in the jail. While I know we think everyone will leave the jail when cashless bail begins, we have few people in our jail who aren't violent and will remain in jail. As violent crime and shootings continue to skyrocket here and across the county, we need to focus those funds on the jail, its staff, and those incarcerated to protect the public. Thank you. Thank you for your comments about businesses and the shooting.
Samantha?
Okay, we're gonna stop this right here because we are a community, a county board working together, and we are trying to address those issues. If you do not want to be on this board and address those issues that are before us, please don't be here, okay? We are addressing the issues with the county jail because we have set aside money for that. We've also set aside money for this, okay? We don't want any negative vibes here, okay? We are a community, a county board working together. That is our purpose of being here, okay, Jim? Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know if I can say it any better than Samantha just did, but I do want to say that I'm very thankful for the opportunity to listen to what everybody has to say about ways to get in front of this violence instead of trying to address it on the back end, because apparently that hasn't done much to deter crime in this community. And I'm hopeful that looking at ways to prevent rather than punish will be effective today.
All right. And also, there's a HV Neighborhood Transformations has a memo in the packet. Moving on to the presentations. Our first presentation is from the City of Champaign. We have Rachel Joy. And Rachel has very thankful for you to come out tonight, considering that you have a council meeting in 30 minutes. So at any time that you feel that you have to scram, just cut us off and let us know.
You can vouch that I was here. Thank you for having us this evening. Again, my name is Rachel Joy. I am the Director of the Equity and Engagement Department, and I'm joined by Jorge Elvir, who is the new Community Relations Manager. Jorge started on May 9th, so just kind of throwing him out here so he can get started. But I will start with that. As the city began to look at and sort of put together the blueprint, one of the things was really looking at not having just initiatives, but institutionalizing the work. So part of that was the move from a division where we were first the Office of Equity, Community, and Human Rights as a division of the city manager's office into a full department. So that's pretty historical for the city of Champaign. It has 3 divisions: diversity, equity, and inclusion, community outreach and engagement, and then the 3rd division that really is the division that will manage the work of the blueprint that we'll talk a little bit about this evening, is the Community Safety and Justice Division, and that is what Jorge will be taking on. So we're very excited to have him start in that position. But that was key as we looked at how we would utilize ARPA funds to make sure what happens after. You can't say to people, we're going to start this work and attempt to do it for a couple of years and just sort of let it go. So the city's commitment is really about institutionalizing that work. We also looked at, and what we'll talk briefly about, is why it's rooted in equity, you know. And so Jorge will kind of go over some root causes, just to kind of give you an overview. We'll talk a little bit about the partnerships. Some of those names of partners you've actually heard today, and they will speak today. So we're very pleased about that, to have that sort of continuum. And then the other thing that I want to emphasize as we keep moving forward, this is not all the partners that we will be utilizing, right? We'll be looking, and we have this sort of in real time, if you will. What are some other things? So we do have some funds, part of the ARPA funds, that will be requests for proposals for additional work. And we did provide you with your own packet and just sort of an overview that you could look at later, which is much more in depth than what our presentation will be this evening. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started.
Good evening, everyone. There we go. Just making sure it works so that you can hear me clearly, right? Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us. So basically, what I'm going to talk about is kind of the root causes that came about from all the analysis and all the data that was collected, you know, to come up with the blueprint. And some of those, you know, root causes are things that we just talked about and heard about here from other speakers, right? When we talk about income inequality, right? When we talk about poverty, when we, you know, I like to call them the unders. When we talk about the funded public housing, right? Public housing needs more funding. They were here asking today to help for youth development, but still the housing developments and the housing crisis is important. The underperforming schools, right? We have partnership with the schools as well, because our schools are underperforming. And our under-resourced public services, right? Because our public services are in crisis. We hear people, you know, trying to get jobs, trying to get the right paying jobs, trying to, you know, make it with a family of 3 or 4, right? So all those things are root causes to violence, right? So we're trying to look at these things from, you know, a proactive standpoint instead of a, you know, kind of consequence-driven model. So trying to stop it before it happens, because we know that as a society, as a social construct, we're responsible for some of these root causes. So we have to take some responsibility to try to correct this, besides just dishing out punishment and things of that nature. So we have to change mindsets, right? We have to build new mindsets. So that's where these root causes come from for us, and trying to address that. You'll see through the blueprint that these root causes are definitely driving the implementation of the work of the partners that we've tried to select within our community, because they all are working in some way to address some of these root causes, right? We're providing funding and helping with funding for the public services because it's overwhelmed. We're working with the school districts, right? We're working with public housing. You know, the Youth Build initiative that's going on this summer, that's a blueprint-funded program that we're doing this summer with them. So there's a lot of things that are coming out of the blueprint already. So with that said, you know, the blueprint has 3 major goals. Prevent, reduce violence, right? Prevent and reduce violence is a big one. And the big thing is prevent, right? So to catch it in the beginning, to engage our youth at an early age, to change mindsets, to provide help, to provide hope, to provide opportunity, to provide access, to provide skills. All these things are necessary for an individual to be successful. And sometimes a lot of our youth, the Black and brown community, do not see this. So we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to provide more services. When we talk about equity, we're not talking about equal. We're talking about what an individual needs, meeting with individuals, building relationships, because what Jimmy needs may not be what Bob needs. So trying to move away from just a blanket, you know, response and starting to individualize, individual treatment plans, individual education plans, individual achievement plans, right? See what that individual needs, and let's see if we can provide it. If we work in a partnership collaboratively instead of silos, we can do that, because we have resources. We just got to band together and communicate so that, you know, all the resources aren't in one spot, right? So that multiple families, multiple communities are being helped at the same time, right? So the second one is the engagement and the support, right? We want to engage and support our community. We don't want to punish our community. We don't want to look down on our communities. We want to engage and support them. They've been marginalized long enough, right? They've been blocked off long enough. They've been not allowed to access long enough. Let's provide the engagement and the support that we need for our communities to be successful. And the last piece is the kind of the data-driven decision making, right? We've brought on in the blueprint. See if I can remember the whole name. I know that it's SU here, right? But it's health, education. It's another E. Evaluation.
Assessment.
There you go, right? So that they can not only just evaluate the program, so that we're constantly progress monitoring the programs and the partners that are working with us, right? It's not let's just throw out money and see what happens. We are progress monitoring. We are meeting with individuals. We are helping them get through their finances so that they can better serve the community as well. So not only are we progress monitoring the programs, but we're also hiring somebody to progress monitor our performance as well as the programs, because that's very important, right? And we need to be able to be fluid and on our feet. We can't progress monitor every 6 months. We have to do that on a regular basis. We got to meet weekly. We got to meet monthly. We got to meet quarterly and be able to shift gears when we see something is not working. We can't continue to do the same things that are not working and think that we're going to get a better result, right? That's just what's been happening with our social construct as a whole, right? That's why we're in this position now. You know, I'm not going to get into my philosophy about prisons and jails and incarceration and all that, because that's not what we're here to talk about. But we're here to talk about assessing programs and seeing the fidelity that they work with, right? Are we getting the outcomes that we want? And if we're not getting the outcomes, let's make the changes that we need to make those outcomes for our community. So that's our third goal. This is just an idea of the different partnerships that we have with individuals. Some of the individuals that we're already working with are here tonight, so I'm not going to steal their thunder and tell you what they're doing, right? I'm going to let them talk about their programs, because who best to talk about them programs than themselves? I might not do them enough justice. But a lot of those individuals up there are already working, hitting the ground, trying to hire people out there, working in the community. And let's acknowledge this, that they were working in the community before the blueprint, right? They've been doing this for a while, so that's why we've tapped into their expertise as well, to help them help us, right? So that we can all help our community together. And hopefully you don't have any questions, because I was thorough, hopefully.
What is RFP?
Request for proposal.
No, on the thing. Are you saying that you have RFPs out for those services?
Or these will be RFPs that we will have that will go out. Actually, so some of the additional things that I mentioned at first, we do have some listed of some of the areas that we knew we would need. So additional family programming, legal services, and there will be additional ones. So this was just sort of an outline of that. We're finalizing our street outreach partner. We'll have faith-based mentoring, so yes. Yep.
So then the ones on that last slide, sorry, that you don't have the RFP by, those are ones where the partnership is already in place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I did try to differentiate the difference between supporting families and people that are creating violence in our community that impact those families. That was my point. We have a responsibility as a county to provide a mandated responsibility to provide jail and justice system, which is one of our main priorities. And I don't think we're addressing that. I've been involved in the county board for 10 years, Community Action Board, Youth Assessment Center, Head Start, working on many of these programs for many years and supporting these programs for many years. So I appreciate your presentation. I'm glad to see that there's some coalitions building and monitoring as required by our ARPA funding. And I want to see the same success and want to support you in that success. The question or the comment that Ms. Joy made was that funding is an issue, obviously, that this is a 3-year program. How do you see it funded past that period, and how many people do you hope to support and help? Thank you.
Well, at least to the first question related to sort of sustainability. So, you know, council said, council member mentioned that when we want to find money, we find money. So that was the council directly. So they have committed to us as a staff to look for places where we can have additional funding. We're also, with the evaluation, because we're doing it just a little bit further than what ARPA is requiring, but really to look at what are those, the impacts, the unintended things, and how can we work also with the university to look at sustainability of funding. So that will be also a part of the work that we do as a department over this, you know, period to actually proactively look for funding. So there's been a commitment from council and sort of a directive, if you will, that we look for that. Additionally, and one of the things that we didn't talk about is within the division that we also have 2 justice victim advocates that will be full-time positions and permanent as jobs can actually be, but they will be, and we have 2 impact outreach workers who are temporary. So they also will be doing things directly with police and those sorts of things. As it relates to direct numbers, we have some of those numbers as it relates to in your packet with various programs and just what they're looking at doing. But like Jorge mentioned, we'll be working with the partners because we know sometimes things change. They thought it might be this many families that they would serve. We're meeting because things are going to sort of change in real time, and then we realize, oh, we need some additional work. So we'll be able to put out those reports publicly to capture all of that data, but that's part of it, and we're hoping that the evaluation will drive an opportunity for funding to be able to show what we've done to increase our chances for additional funding other places.
And just really quick, take my city hat off for a second and I'll put my activist hat on. Don't do it. Thank you very much. What's your question?
I was actually at city council the night they presented this. They called it the full circle, I think. What did they call that?
Connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots, and it made a full circle. And so just to see that presentation, this is what a community looks like. You know, everybody is doing their part. And we all know that the Black community right now is plagued with a lot of different issues. So it's just so good to see so many partnerships within the city and the county. I appreciate that. That really does stand out to me about this. So thank you both.
You know, I think that Rachel being here, and I've appreciated the time, the conversations that we've had outside of this space, and you just kind of walking me through all the awesome stuff that Champaign is doing. But I think it points to something really important and something, you know, probably that I should have thought of a long time ago, and this is why we have these kind of meetings. But I think it's somewhat naive for us to think that we're going to get where we want to get without building the same kind of permanent actual infrastructure within the county that Champaign has built. We have this ARPA money right now, and for this initiative to be successful, I think having an actual full-time, you know, we might not be department ready yet, but staff member who's oversees, whose job is equity and diversity, I think is something that needs to come out of this. I think we have pieces already there. So for example, you know, we've already funded the gun buyback program. We have some excellent ideas coming out of the small business program. We already do youth assessment and reentry. Having all of that under one umbrella, along with what else we decide to fund out of this. And right now we have Michael Carter, who is a part-time, 22-hour-a-week grant writer with experience in this realm. And so far we've given him jack to do, right? So we could put that person, you know what I mean, on that team. To give you just one example, the department, Illinois, starting on May 2nd, has a new grant opportunity called Reimagining Public Safety Act which is specifically around initiatives like we're talking about. And let's just be real, we as a county are not going to get it if we don't have a plan in place. And so for me, I think establishing that space, using the ARPA money for 2 years to establish that space, and then figuring out how we continue it sustainably through other opportunities that are there. And quite frankly, putting resources from this county into that, right? Your budget is a moral document. And I'm just going to be blunt. Ours fails the moral test. It just does. So to me, I think that has to be a piece of this going forward, because the evaluation piece is also so important. We don't want to throw money at programs, you know what I mean, that don't work. Money doesn't solve everything, but how do we know what we're doing if we don't have a robust evaluation piece into it? And that is a skill set, and we cannot put that evaluation process totally on, that burden on the programs to evaluate themselves. That's just patently absurd. Like, we need to be evaluating and providing that resource so that we can move forward and, frankly, demonstrate success so that we can continue to have money. So for me, like, just to be perfectly blunt, we could never get to a document like this because we don't have the institutional staff to get us there, right? I think this is amazing. And I'll just be frank, I'm like just jealous of the city of Champaign. But the city of Champaign is there because they chose to be there. They took concrete actions. It didn't happen overnight. Like you said, you started with a division and now you're a department. I mean, I think we could start with a person. But that's something we haven't talked about with this, but this is, I think, the more I think about it, the more that has to be a piece of as we put this together.
All right, any other questions? All right, thanks a lot for coming out tonight. All right, next on the agenda is first followers.
Did you get a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I think the tech department will be pulling it out there.
Hello, does it work? Thank you. Hi, my name is Heather Rose, and I'm the owner of Forever Healing Us, LLC. I offer health and community wellness programs, as well as coaching and consulting to the community. So I'm here to present to you guys our H3 coalition model. As you can read it, it is called H3. It's hurt, healing, and hope. Harm. Harm, healing, and hope. And we have 5 pillars in which we want to address community violence by utilizing these 5 pillars. So we're trying to do this holistically, okay? We're not trying to leave too much out. All right, so our 5 pillars consist of the economic development, in which Mark will present to you about that. The education is Marlon's. Counseling and therapy, I will speak upon that. And then we have the civic engagement as well as community outreach. This is our 3-year strategic plan that we have come up with. So I want you guys to know our vision statement, all right? And then I will follow that up with our mission statement. Our vision statement is as a well-resourced community which provides services and support to address the social, emotional, and economic needs of people impacted by violence and inequity in all its forms. Our mission statement is to build a grassroots-driven, coordinated system of care that provides services to enhance the capacity of communities that have been marginalized. This coalition aims to solve problems of violence, poverty, and any other injustices. I'm going to go ahead and let Marlon take on.
All right, so again, most of you all know me. My name is Marlon Mitchell. I'm actually the I'm actually the executive director of First Followers, and so what we have before us is just a deck of slides that we wanted to talk about the work that we've been putting in for about a year now. I think we prefaced this going all the way back to August, September when we presented to the board this particular model that we're calling H3, which is harm, healing, and hope. So, all right, so what you see in front of you with this slide here is just talks about the developmental stages. And as you see, there's 4 different phases to the developmental stage. And so from left to right is the developmental stage, which when we started back in April of last year, we kind of started bringing in like-minded community-based organizations that had a genuine concern and, for lack of a word, a lot of skin in the game when we talk about community violence, and in particular gun violence. And so as we start to powwow on a biweekly basis, we started to develop this H3 model. And so as you can see, after the developmental stage, you had the integration. We're going with the integration of from integration, meaning bringing all the different parts together. It's not necessarily year by year because we know the ARPA funds are only for 3 years, right? Or 2. Now we're down to 2. So partial implementation phase, and what that essentially means is since we've been doing this work, we've been pulling a lot of different programs together, and as I mentioned, we're building a coalition. All right, so the third phase is the full implementation phase. So what we foresee here is having all the different programs and people at the table running the different services and programs. And most importantly is the sustainability phase. And although that's the fourth phase, that does not necessarily mean we're waiting until the last minute to come up with a sustainability plan. So up under there, you can kind of take a snapshot of the timeline. I won't go through all of that, but essentially we're going from started last year, going all the way and through January of 2024 and beyond, or the ARPA funds ends in actually December 2024. Yeah. All right, so what I wanted to touch on, like I mentioned just a minute ago, we've already started a lot of the different programs. And I think Rachel, in her slide, she showed her full circle of all the different organizations that are at the table. Now, these are organizations that not only have been at the table just a couple months ago. And I can speak for First Followers. We've been doing this type of work for years. And we know that other coalition partners have been doing this work for years. Example, CU Try and Karen Sims' group, DREAAM, Tracy Dace and his group. So we want to talk about some of the different programs, but I have one of the programs that Mark Pillmore, who is the owner of Business Elevator, would like to talk about some of the programs that he's been running over the past few weeks.
Good evening. My name is Mark Pillmore. I'm one of the co-founders of Business Elevator. And as you can see on the screen, we have actually launched, well, we had already launched a couple years ago, but through the initiative, we have incorporated Business Elevator programs into the H3 model. So we run 2 programs concurrently. The first one is Entrepreneur Coaching Academy, where we do a 6-week boot camp with aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs that want to show some growth. And in that, we do basic to advanced training, and then we get into one-on-one meetings or sessions where they can delve into things more specifically. We created a drop-in center so they can come in unscheduled, or if they have an issue going on with their registration or with the state or whatever the case may be, and we help them work through that in order to get their business to a legitimate standing with the state or with the county. And the second program that we have started is actually Young Entrepreneur Coaching Academy. And part of that is the chess club. So the Young Entrepreneur Coaching Academies is for individuals 10 to 17 that actually want to start a business. So we kind of go through the same thing we do with Entrepreneur Coaching Academy, just with younger folks. The chess club is a division of the Young Entrepreneur Coaching Academy, and that is for folks 10 to 17 that have not actually taken heed to wanting to be an entrepreneur. So we use the game of chess to teach them critical thinking, entrepreneurial skills, and 21st century mindsets. So we're using chess to become the launch pad for things that may happen in the future, whether it's college, whether it's a trade, or whether it's starting a business. So those two programs are actually been running since March the 1st. We have been running them as an organization since 2019, and now we're doing it for ourselves, plus we're doing it as part of H3. We just finished the Entrepreneur Coaching Academy April 21st. As far as the chess program, we are in week 7 or 8, so we got a couple more weeks of that, and then we'll start again mid to late June and go for 10 weeks for the chess program, 6 weeks for the Entrepreneur Coaching Academy. Just in the past month and a half, 2 months, we had 20 to 25 entrepreneurs showing up once a week for 2 hours. And in the chess program, we got 12 young people that are showing up once a week for the chess program. So we're looking at doubling that by the end of the year. And we're also going to create a chess tournament right here in Champaign on the north end based on the youth that we train through the chess program. Thank you.
Would it be okay if I just asked just a couple questions just for that pillar? So just first of all, I love chess, so that's really exciting to me. The small business, the entrepreneur program that you were talking about, is it primarily for 10 to 17-year-olds, or is there also an adult component?
No, the Entrepreneur Coaching Academy is 18 plus.
Awesome.
The Young Entrepreneur Coaching Academy is 10 to 17.
Awesome. And then how are you recruiting the participants? Like, where are they coming from? And also, where are you holding these programs?
So we are pulling folks from the library. We're pulling folks from the Small Business Development Center. We're pulling folks from the community. As a former Parkland College teacher, we have connections at Parkland. As a business affiliate of Geese School of Business, we have connections there. So the community knows about us. It's just a matter of them coming through the doors.
And I also like to just add, with our drop-in center, oftentimes we get clients in that are looking to get their own businesses started. So we also funnel quite a few people over to Mark, and then we also have some parents of our GOMAD students in our building construction that are, they may have these aspirations of being restaurateurs. And then also I think some of the people that I was surprised about was just, trying to go into some technical type of businesses. So it's kind of a thing about word of mouth. A lot of it's word of mouth, and just, if you know anything about Champaign community, everything is kind of networked.
So, I've talked to you, Mr. Pelmore, because I'm just excited. Just the fact of, you're putting that seed into the young minds. I've been an entrepreneur majority of my life. And the reason for that is because I became a convicted felon at the age of 19. So I had no other, backup plan. I knew if I went to seek a job at a business that they wouldn't hire me because of my fellow conviction. And so to see your program, ever since I heard about it, I've just been excited because This is what young folks need. Everybody is not interested into going to college afterwards. I went straight from high school and to cosmetology school, which is a trade school, you know, and then the construction program that you got going on. Like, all of that is awesome. So I'm just excited. I did not know the ages was that young, and that is just mind-blowing to me. Chess, I've never played it, but I know it's a strategic game that I think will capture young minds. So I think that's even awesome, too, that you incorporated that as well. So thank you so much for all your hard work. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next part of the particular program I should talk about is the counseling and therapy pillar, in which I am the owner of Forever Healing Us LLC. So with that being said, we have a community garden on Louisiana, in which we are partnering with Solar Gracia Garden. So we're gonna do some great things, great things. I expect to have some cash crops real soon, all right? So we're also looking to have this holistic wellness center. So with this wellness center, this is my baby right here. I am a specialist in community health. That is my background. My background also consists of health promotion and leadership. So my main approach is the holistic approach. I look at 7 dimensions of wellness, not just the 5 that were listed, 7. So my approach is specifically looking at the person holistically, okay? Also, I offer programming. I offer programming, and I've been doing programming for the last, it's going to be 4 years coming up. Every single summer, I offer self-love workshops for the community, okay? I must also say that I do individual therapy sessions as well. So the group and the group therapy sessions will be more of like a retreat, more of a workshop, to where we can talk and discuss about health and wellness and what holistic health looks like. So that is all in all what the counseling and therapy pillar will be.
All right, so I'm going to just touch a little bit real briefly on the outreach pillar. So as you all see, it says the IDOC InReach, which is the Illinois Department of Corrections InReach. And so we were tapped by the city, part of the blueprint, to provide services for individuals who are 2 years short of their parole date. And so what we've been able to do there is work with the parole divisions throughout the state of Illinois for any persons that are returning from incarceration, returning back to Champaign County. And so with that being said, what we do is we get with their counselors that's within those facilities. We have communications with them. And what they have inside the IDOC is kind of these resource libraries that talk about successful reentry. And in these libraries, the individuals that are incarcerated, they have an opportunity to sign a consent form to contact us, and we can start communicating with them prior to them coming back to Champaign County and start to build a relationship there. We start to build an individualized plan where we assess to see where they are, what they've done since they've been away, any dreams, aspirations that they have, any issues that they may have in the community, family re-engagement. So we have all these conversations to try to develop an individualized plan. And once they're released, we tie them to our mentors here in the community, where we make sure that they get all their critical needs. And then from there, we work our resources as far as employment, working with employers. That our drop-in center coordinator, Tiger Court, has built a lot of relationships with the different employers around town, and then any kind of housing needs. We provide referrals there. We have a handful of private landowners that are sympathetic to the mission and the folks that are needing these particular services. So over the years, as first followers with our drop-in center, we've really established a big footprint in the community as far as being able to reach those folks who have having these difficulties reentering into their particular neighborhoods. All right, so and then another initiative we're partnering with the county clerk, Aaron Amons, coming up. We have an event on the 27th of this month, I do believe. And essentially that's to get out and vote, and we're just trying to prime the pump for the elections that's coming up in November. All right, and then finally, this courtroom support kind of came organically. As we say, you know, me personally, working with First Followers, I work with a group of young men between 18 and 24 who have been involved with the criminal justice system. And oftentimes, you know, in that whole, I guess that whole journey, oftentimes they're already involved with the criminal justice system. They may be tied to probation, parole, and different things like that. So going into the courtroom to help support them and their families is a big critical need. And so we provide services for not only that individual, but for the families as well, try to help them navigate that space. All right, and so the education pillar, I think there's a representative here from the Housing Authority. So one of the things that we've been able to do with the Youth Build program is partner with them and come up under their umbrella for attaining high school diplomas through the Penn Foster. Just last week, we just enrolled our first student. We have 2 or 3 more on board that we're going to get up and going once we get their transcripts from their latest high schools. And so we believe that if anybody knows anything about the Illinois Department of Corrections, we all know that, or most of us know that, it's not as easy to be incarcerated and get a high school diploma, regardless of what people say. It's because, again, we're coming out of COVID, but prior to COVID, oftentimes, or many of the institutions were on 23-and-1, and they didn't provide any kind of education services, so you're pretty much doing dead time, even if you try to get into school, right? So we provide that for folks that are coming home from prison, and also the young men that we work with from the 18 to 24-year-old, where, you know, the school system, the traditional school system didn't work for them. So with that being said, I'm gonna pass this over to James.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question just on that section, Mr. Mitchell? I know how important support must be for people who are returning from IDOC. Is what you were talking about here, I'm sorry, these are for anybody in the Illinois state system who's returning to Champaign County? So they could be all over the state, but they're coming back here upon release?
It depends on where they want to parole to. So we're specifically focusing on individuals that's returning and being paroled to Champaign County.
For Ms. Heather Rose, that's awesome what you're doing, the holistic wellness approach. We have a community full of mourning people. And the garden, I didn't know about it. How long has this been up and running? Or you just started it?
No, about 3 years.
About 3 years?
Yes.
That's awesome. With your work, and you mentioned workshops.
Yes.
Can you tell me, what do you do in your workshops? And what is your targeted audience? Like, who are you having participate?
The Black and Indigenous people of color. Okay. I go through some healing sessions, specifically spirituality is at the height. So I tap into some things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and that is the fears, the traumas, the hurt, the pain. I specifically talk about those things and give people space. I hold space for people, and that's what I do. So we go over how to get over those traumas, how to release, how to let go. What does it look like? So I give you more of a strategic plan or criteria, the walkthrough. Mm-hmm. I'm not there to specifically to give you a, let me see. Let me get my words together. I'm there to hold space, but I'm not there specifically to hold your hand while you're while I'm not there. You have to do the work yourself. That's the words that I needed to say. Yes. So I'm there to help you during that time, but I can give you some help along the way, but you have to do the work. That's the main thing. You have to do the work.
Thank you. And is this a program, is so many weeks long? Like, how would mothers be able to contact you?
You can contact me through Facebook, through Instagram. I'm available. I've been doing this for the longest. I was giving it out for free publicly at the library a couple of years ago. So I'm moving to private location right now, so people can contact me one-on-one. But I am here for the community to hold space for those that are really struggling and trying to get over certain mountains and obstacles that they don't want to necessarily approach.
I say that because I'm friends with some of the young men that have been murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And I read some of their posts sometimes, the mother's posts,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel that hurt.
Yes.
I feel that pain.
Yes.
Just a couple of weeks ago, they had a retreat where I think it's called Lullabills, I think it was called. And I thought that was so awesome because right now, in order to heal our community, we definitely have to heal these mourning mothers,
Yes.
girlfriends,
Yes.
brothers, sisters.
Yes.
That's a part of helping our community right now through all the tragedies that we've experienced. So
Yes.
I'm glad that this is also included with your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Self-love is the best love.
It is, and we need it,
Yes.
and we've lacked getting it for so long, and the time now is to heal.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm James Kilgore. I'm the Director of Outreach and Advocacy for First Followers. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability. That's the big word. When we first saw the fact that there was going to be ARPA funds coming into the county, we got excited. We thought this is going to be an amazing opportunity. And then we saw it's only going to be for 2 years, and we thought, uh-oh. That's not very long. Before we know it, that's going to be gone, and the money's going to be gone, and we're going to have set people up with programs that we're not going to be able to sustain. So really, from day one, we've been thinking about strategic plan. That's why you've seen from us a document, a strategic planning document. We hired an organizational development consultant, Dr. Leah Peoples, who graduated out of with her PhD from the University of Illinois, to develop a strategic plan for us, because we knew without that we weren't going to make a success of this. And so incorporated into that strategic plan is a plan for sustainability. So what's going to guarantee sustainability? The first thing is we need to strengthen the relationships with the partners in the City of Champaign's blueprint and the coalition partners in H3. We have to build a successful program. If we don't have that, we can't raise funds in the long run for something that's not working. But it's not enough just to carry out a program that works. You also have to make sure that you're gathering data and evaluating that program. So we have already set up a system of evaluation, a system of gathering data on all of the events, all of the processes, all of the things that we're involved in. So we're going to be able to report on these things, and also be able to come with external evaluations and be able to give them the data they need to show that we have a successful program. So that's absolutely essential. And Marlon's an expert on evaluation, I just want to say also, which is very useful to us at this particular moment. And I really want to thank Rachel Joy and Jorge Elfier for also emphasizing that we don't have to carry this can alone, this burden alone of sustainability. If we get a program that's going to be the pride of the city, that's going to be the pride of the county, we're going to form bigger partnerships, and I think that's part of reimagining public safety together. So we have to do that and build on our existing funding base. We have local funders, state funders, national funders, and so do many of the coalition members. So as we build a successful program, we can also build on the connections that we have, and we in particular want to tap into some local sources that haven't that have a lot of resources that haven't been so forthcoming. In particular, I'm thinking of the university and of Carl Foundation, which is part of the Champaign partnership, but so far we haven't really been able to connect with them. But we feel that if we produce a program that's delivering the goods, that's making a difference for community violence, people will step up. People want this initiative to succeed. There are resources in this community and beyond, and we can tap those resources if we carry out our mission and if we have effective partnerships with the city councils and the county board. So this is we've been building our coalition by getting organizations to sign memorandums of understanding with us. So far, these are the organizations that we have as part of our coalition, and we have several more that are on tap to join. So we have Business Elevator that Mark has spoken about, A Cut Above Barber Academy, Courage Connection, Ready, Set, Go, which is a consultancy that does counseling and support, Forever Healing Us, the Housing Authority, CU Try. Karen Sims will be speaking for CU Try in a minute. Youth Build, the Champaign-Urbana Black Chamber of Commerce. Will Kiles has spoken for that. Pastor Thomas from Bethel AME and the Youth and Family Alliance. And then we have other potential partners over there in the lower right-hand corner. And we have letters of support from the ACLU. They're represented here, as well as from Dr. Helen Neville. So we're building this coalition. This is just a start. But a year ago, nothing like this existed. This is really reimagining what we can do in this community and building and bringing people together to deal with this issue.
I just want to say, going back to that last slide, that's so heartening to see. I know in the last time that you presented to us, it felt more like there were so many organizations coming to us that had so many different needs that were all siloed, and here you are pulling everyone together, and I'm impressed. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done.
Well, I've had the pleasure of watching First Followers grow in this community for many years. I've always loved your mission, your goals. I often thought back like, wow, what if they were around when I had, caught my conviction, but, great people, great people in this community want to see you succeed, even after your conviction. Now, there are some people that want you to carry your conviction for the rest of your life. And I see your organization has put in the footwork to make sure that ex-offenders are successful. That has been your main goal and mission, and I'm just thankful to see all of this come together. This is awesome, and you've tapped into everything in the community. I mean, this is what a community looks like as well. I love that full circle because it all connects. Thank you so much.
Kind of circling back to the counseling and therapy pillar. In the budget documents you provided, you spoke about Ready, Set, Go counseling, but are you also, one of the things I want to think about is, not only how do we bring this whole coalition together, but how do we make sure that we get material resources into the hands of all of the partners of the coalition? I think I really like the H3 model. I like the way that it's set up, but thinking about how do we make sure that we actually bring material resources. So I just wanted to double check. I think what you were talking about in the importance of holding space, I want you to know that spoke to my heart. And I appreciated that a great deal. And like you said, you've been doing this as a volunteer service and moving into, so I just wanted to make sure that piece is, there are going to be some actual material resources for particularly for Heather's organization.
So when you say material resources,
money.
I just wanted to I just wanted to hear it. No, but seriously, so Ready, Set, Go, which is an organization that's run by Dr. Regina Purnell, and she's at a conference over in D.C. Today, so she couldn't make it. So one of the things that she's done is she graduated with her PhD from the University of Southern Cal, maybe about 2-3 years ago.
Right.
And along that journey, one of the things that she has done, she's been networking with other people of color that's in that field. So one of the missing pieces here locally is that we don't have therapists or counselors,
Right.
not many of them, of color. And we know we're in a time and an age right now that many of us need those mental health services, right? And many of us seek and want those services from people that look like us in order for it to be effective and useful. And so what she's done is she has a group of African-American licensed clinical social workers and therapists, 7 of them. I think it's about 7 of them, right, James? 5 of them. So it's 5 of them that's scattered around the states. There's 2 in Texas. One is in, I know, New York, and 1 is in LA, and the other one is here in Champaign, Urbana, I do believe. And Regina, she's down in St. Louis. But one of the things that we're moving towards, I mean, as a country, is this thing about telehealth. Right? So moving out of the pandemic, everything is going telehealth. So one of the things that she's developed is a service where there can be individualized services where she links a therapist that may be in Texas with someone here, a mother that may be a victim of gun violence. And so they have sessions. I think they have up to 6 sessions, the way that we have that written in there. But I think one of the beautiful things that's coming out of that 6th session, if they go through all the sessions, or as many sessions as they need, up to 6, is that Regina herself starts to develop a wraparound plan. So that once they are done with the individualized services, as far as the therapy, they do have a wraparound plan of folks here locally that are in their network to help support them along their recovery and their journey. So I think that's a very creative way of putting all of this together. I know Karen and I, we've talked about, so she has some similar ideas and they work in the same space. But I think I think everybody here will attest to this, that we have so much going on coming out of the pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, with mental health, and where we are as a community, that all hands need to be on deck. You never can have enough therapy or enough persons there to help you, assist you through whatever tribulation, whatever barrier or challenge you may have. And so I think with this H3 model, Karen, she and I have talked. She's been a part of the organization. We've done things. She's had plenty of workshops throughout the community. So she's even trained some of our mentors in how to deal with certain things in certain instances. So I think that pillar with the counseling and therapy, that's going to be the pillar that really gets us to where we need to be.
Does that include Ms. Heather Rose?
Oh, yeah.
So she'll be with.
Yeah, she's part of that. She's part of that pillar.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, next on the agenda, Karen Sims.
I'm going to try to be efficient because there's been some redundancy. So let's see. All right. So before I start, I do want to say a couple of things, just because I want to connect some threads and dots. Trying to multitask. There we go. Thank you. So Karen Sims with the Trauma and Resiliency Initiative, and for those people who don't know me, for the last few years, I've been in places and spaces wishing and advocating for Champaign County to be a trauma-informed community, which sounds like a lot of buzzwords, but what it means is it's a resilient community that is equitable and just and healing-centered. And I believe that the Blueprints document provides both a unique opportunity to address both structures that need to be in place, and I think I'm going to lose that Stephanie was talking about how important infrastructure is to sustain this work. And I agree, informal structures like city government and county boards and county governments. What is also unique in this moment that I think ARPA funding was asking us to think about is infrastructure on a community level. And I think the H3 initiative provides sort of the partner. I think that you need both the formal city leadership, but you also need community-led initiatives that are sustainable, that build infrastructure, so that particularly for communities that have been harmed by structures, you can't expect the community to sort of feel like the infrastructure in city government and county boards are going to be the source of healing. And so looking at this as an opportunity to build community-based infrastructure where people have relationships that are sustainable, that are a part of repairing structural harm, is a really unique opportunity. So I just wanted to say that before I kind of got into talking about my work and TRI. So one of the things that TRI believes, and I talked about the importance of trauma-informed community building, is that we do believe that it takes a village to heal. So Ms. Carter has been saying repeatedly how she loves the vision of the circle. And anytime I think that if we approach this work, assuming that one program, one service, one support, one way will address the issue, we will get it wrong because it requires comprehensive approaches. And I will say that from my experience, Champaign County is resource rich, right? Everybody will say that. However, there are holes in our infrastructure that have existed longstanding. And so because we tend to not think about how all of the threads, right, spider webs united can tie up a lion, but if you aren't united, if you say, oh, I think just reinforcing, spending resources over here in criminal justice without thinking about prevention or early intervention or targeted treatment or postvention, if we don't think about how all of the threads go together, we miss things. And I have really been thinking about this whole theme, particularly because of COVID and community violence, that, right, human beings need the right to be, become, and belong, right? And when we don't feel like we can belong, then, right, there's lots of data and science that says this, that people, some of the symptoms of not feeling like you can become and belong, right? So all of the economic justice and infrastructure and stuff that people have been talking about heretofore, there is an African proverb that says, when youth do not feel invited by the village, they will burn it down to fill its warmth. And I think, right, if we think about some of the symptoms that we're seeing are about people not feeling that they have a right to belong. So what do we know? That community violence and trauma are bidirectional. So they are bidirectional, and we don't have time to go into a larger conversation from both sort of philosophical reasons, like I talked about the whole belonging, but there are also neurobiological reasons. And so if you don't acknowledge the whole last 15 years that has been focused on trauma, because we know that trauma impacts the brain development, it changes you neurobiologically and physically, and if you don't acknowledge that and you act like you're just treating the symptoms, you won't provide the healing opportunities, nor will you address strategies that are strategic. And so, again, I want us just to really be thinking about it. I put this in there because, again, I think I'm in places and spaces where people want simple answers to complex problems, and community violence is a complex issue, and we know that everybody is a combination of risk and protective factors, right? So we have these things, and every day we're constantly navigating between having resources and then being under-resourced. And so we know that there are community things that make people vulnerable, there are family things that make people vulnerable, and there are media and social norms that make people vulnerable, right? So if you thought about the initial slide that came from the blueprints document, right? So some of those vulnerabilities. We also know what helps make people resilient. And I don't think that we talk enough about this. So we know that when people have strong family networks and supports that keep people together. So all of the work around recovery, about re-offender rehabilitation that keep men and women in families and community is a part of healing a community that makes it resilient and strong. Hopefully, right, that makes sense. When we make sure that people have access to the addiction and substance abuse treatment services, it helps. When people live in neighborhoods and don't feel like they have to parent alone. I know that that seems like it's rocket science, but if you think about the difference between what families and neighborhoods who have been impacted by adversity deal with around parenting by alone, not having a friend that they can call and talk about, not having the ability sometimes to like be able to say, hey, I need 5 so that, because my kids are stressing me out. Those are networks that exist in class, right, that people sort of normalize, and then we wonder, right, you're like, well, people will have bad parenting skills. Not necessarily. It's just that all of us, if we're under-resourced, have the ability to sort of not be the best parent, right? And so we also need to make sure that communities feel networked and connected, and I think the H3 model is a chance to build that network, but we also need to repair some harm as organizations and programs and services. And then we also need to change some of our social norms around gun violence, about toxic masculinity, all of those things. So just one last, so I want to say this. So I know the Blueprints document talked about what we know as best practices, but I love this slide. The University of Illinois in Chicago put this together, and it identifies, right, it went through all of the research around what are the best practices to address community violence. And it says that there are individual, family, community, and society issues, right? And to think about all of these, and I want to say, if I think about all of the different voices in this room, there were people who were advocating for individual change. And there are people who are saying, we also need to make sure that we prioritize community safety and social safety, right? It is not like, it's not that in isolation though. So we need all of the things working together collectively. And if you only do one, we've got lots of data that says you won't have good outcomes. We've done just criminalization, and we have families that are fragile and broken and vulnerable, and we've had men out of the household, and then people then complain about the fact that people haven't had good parenting when we've destabilized families, right? Like, that's a structural problem that will show up 20, 30 years that you'll take forever trying to heal. So again, complex problems need complex solutions. We need a comprehensive array, and then I'll talk about where TRI is in this continuum. So, right, there are prevention. So I know First Followers, the Blueprint, there are a lot, DREAAM, a lot of the partners are doing prevention. There are targeted interventions, and then there's postvention. And postvention says after a crisis has happened, we still need resources available to help people heal. So where does TRI fit within this larger continuum? And TRI has been doing some version of this work without funding, or without much funding, because in some ways we started off as this sort of breakout group from the coalition, and one of the things that came and from our work was that we thought, as a part of our trauma healing commitment, was that we would support survivors and also educate people about trauma. Well, that work has continued to grow. Last year we had no real formal work, and we served a total of over 80 individuals, and that is providing everything from groups on Sunday for moms to individualized care plans, to information and referrals, to linking people, to helping people move, to helping people find housing, to helping, we've had donations from the community that have put people in hotels and in other places. We've visited with people in the hospital, in community settings. We provided wellness and resiliency and mental health support. And we've done that with volunteers, and we've had some people that we call who are part of our mental health support network who sort of do it with a little bit of stipend, but not near enough. They provided transportation. And so if we've served 80 people last year, primarily through sweat equity, goodwill, and volunteering, we knew, and we are so grateful to the city that, when we looked at the numbers of survivors, and we would also hear people, at the city council meeting saying, but what about us? And we said, yes, we knew that there were far more survivors, and that we know for every shooting there are 6 to 8 victims in a community. And if we don't do something to promote the healing, that there is exponential woundedness. And those people, every mom and girlfriend and partner that we've worked with was a survivor, raising somebody who was frequently victimized, and we were like, we got to do something. So one of the strategies that is funded through the blueprints is we call it our Support for You network. So we'll have staff, paid staff, on call from Thursday evening to Sunday evening, who will be available to respond in community settings and to Carl to provide support to survivors who've been impacted by gun violence. They are the front end of our community violence response team. So that means that a survivor comes in, and we've been doing a little bit of this, but like calling schools, calling our outreach workers, calling first followers, who probably are tired of me calling them, calling HVT, all of the various partners, dispatching those so that in the immediate crisis needs can be met, but then on Monday when kids get back to school, that people know that resources are important, right? So, and for folks with complex needs, we bring a village together and we do wraparound services for those people. So that's one of the things that we will do. And then the second thing that we will do, that we currently do, but we will do more with more intentionality, is the Blueprints is funding our ability to support survivors. And I want to say one caveat. So as Marlon said, there is a lot of need, right? And what we have asked and see our involvement in this effort is capacity building. So we are bringing in at least 5 evidence-based practices, right? So there's good therapy, but there's also like gold standard therapy that is trauma-specific that we don't currently have available in our community. So one of those gold standards is trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a family therapy model, so it helps a lot of different people. We're bringing in a couple of family therapy models. And again, a caveat has said, we have had community meetings, neighborhood meetings, focus group meetings. These things that we're bringing in are in direct response to needs that people have told us that they have. So this isn't like somebody went and read a book. Like, we've listened, we've had moms say. So one of the models we'll bring in is called Sensing Safety. It's the evidence-based trauma-specific model for women who have substance abuse needs who've been impacted by trauma. And we had moms who said, there is nothing in that really helps me deal with so again, and we're able to offer training for free. So there'll be people who can do it. One of our commitments to everybody that we're bringing in is that we're training both therapists, but also paraprofessionals. So we want community members as a part of all the training, because we want, again, when the training leaves, we want the knowledge, skills, and tools to reside in the community, and we want to build our community's capacity to take care of itself, right? So that we're not always like professionalized and having to rely on somebody to come out. We want to build community capacity, and we have the ability through our Blueprints dollars to pay for therapy. So not only will these people be trained at evidence-based practices, but they'll also be able to deliver them. So again, some individual groups, some group-based services, and a variety of trauma-specific treatments. And so imagine if we're bringing in 25 to 30 clinicians, having some training, and we're asking some people to make commitments to not go into like private practice so we can't afford them, right? We're asking them to sort of continue to make this service available for the people who've been impacted by community violence so that people who need the most can get the most. And then the last thing is that as Heather talked about, we've been doing, TRI has been doing this, I don't know if people know this, but we've been doing a variety of different evidence-based wellness, resiliency building things. So we've offered groups at youth, like a variety of different places at the library and all those things. And we've had just regular people that we train to do this. So one of the things another thing that we'll be doing is building more capacity in our community for regular paraprofessionals, people who just want to help and heal, be able to be a part of that. So we've trained people in something called skills for psychological recovery and psychological first aid, and we run a group called GRIT, Growing Resiliency in stressful times, and we've got Stressless, and those are groups that we do in community centers, and we do stuff for seniors. And any group that has told us like, hey, I'm really struggling, we've got a bunch of people available to offer to programs, services, community settings, groups, workshops, a one-time conversation, a multiple-time conversation, because what we want is a village that is a part of the healing, not trying to, we're not going to get this one-on-one, and so our Blueprints dollars allow us to build and strengthen our village, and, right, we get a huge investment this year, so imagine if we, 50 people a year, our vision through TRI is every 6 blocks, right, and every 6 houses, every 6 people should have access to someone who can help them find the care that they need, help them with their mental health recovery in the event that is a crisis, and help them link to care. And so we cannot keep waiting for Superman to come rescue us. So that's what TRI, we're super honored to be a part of the Blueprints document. We're, love working with and in support of H3 and other partner organizations, and our role is sort of capacity building.
So this is awesome. I've heard of you so many times. I guess this is our first time meeting. Ms. Jenny Loskin also asked me if I had known you. And what you're doing is awesome. One thing that I think we forget is the survivors. What are their mental thoughts after the trauma has happened? And so I think that is very important that you are addressing that. That you mentioned therapy for substance abuse. Mothers, that's like really huge right now in our community. And then grit, growing resilience in tough times. That's awesome. Because we're all right now, I think, facing a very rough patch in life that we have never been to in our life, as far as coming out of a pandemic, and then right after the pandemic, then here is all this death from shootings. Some people know, some people don't, but I do work part-time for the funeral homes. So a lot of these young men I have seen and serviced them for their funerals, and it's just been heartbreaking. But then when you think about that young man that has lost his life due to gun violence, then he has a mother that's mourning him. He also has friends that maybe want to do some type of retaliation against the shooters. So we have a lot of mixed emotions going on right now in the Black community, and I am just so I feel so awesome that you are addressing these issues. What we've been doing is not working, and we don't have anything in place to address the issues that we are facing right now. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Ms. Sims, for your hard work, and I like the collaboration because, we are a full circle, and thank you for being a part of our village. Thank you.
I want to echo what Samantha said. I had an opportunity to see firsthand how important basing everything you do on a trauma-informed model. A few years ago, for my actual job, I evaluated a program that was really interestingly funded by the Illinois Manufacturing Association because they were incredibly concerned about the fact that there isn't enough people trained with skill sets coming out of high schools to work in light industry. And that was their goal. And so what they were doing in the Chicago public schools were retooling 10 teachers to specifically teach like light drilling manufacturing. But then they gave the money to the Chicago Teachers Union. And so they did hours and hours and hours of how to work these drills. But they also did several classes, including one on how to teach in a trauma-informed classroom. And, you know, I went up there at least 10 times observing the different classes. And I just remember this one young black man who was a teacher who was going through the program so he could then teach, you know, a STEM field basically, or a mechanical field. And he talked about how important that was and how that changed and impacted, because and I will never forget, he said, how can I teach these kids a skill set for a job if I can't reach them where they are? And it like has stuck with me. And so this kind of thing, you know, whether it's in the small business, you know, how are we going to teach people to be entrepreneurs if we also aren't addressing underlying trauma? How are we going to have the education pillar? How, you know what I'm saying? Like, these things have to work together. And that's one of the reasons I think that these sort of coalitional models are so important, right? To the other point that you said is thinking about how we can use this moment to put infrastructure back into the community. And one of the things I want us to really think about, you know, we for years have been talking about that we need a one-stop shop. We've, you know, came close one time with Carl, and then they disappeared off the face of the earth, right? And I think that thinking about this model and making sure, you know, I did the math on the budget proposal for the H3 model. It's still, if we back out the funding in year 2 for the office, we still have quite a bit of money. And I think one of the things, like if you wanted to say to me, like, what is success? Getting everybody working together is one piece of success, but also coming out of this with an actual facility where if somebody needs help, that they could come and meet you and meet Heather and meet the telehealth program that you were talking about and do the education piece, right? Do all of these pieces. And that is something we don't have. And for me, I think, you know, I know this is jumping ahead on the agenda, but we're talking about next steps. I think thinking about the programmatic piece, but then also carving out the building piece and really making sure that we do the building piece right and that it ends up being a resource long term, because that to me is super important and could be a lasting piece of this. Because, you know, like, I feel like there's a lot of people hustling, right? You know, booking rooms at the library and trying to figure this out. And if we had one space where people could come together, I think that could be so powerful. And just quite frankly, I don't know when else we're going to have the opportunity to do that. And I think we could do both. And I think that we should do both. That's all.
So I love that idea. And just one, so one of the values in a trauma-informed community or trauma-informed is voice and choice. And I love the idea of one-stop shop, but you know, in really healthy communities, there could be something in Rantoul and I want us, again, I think I said that whole idea that for me, sometimes it feels like people of color get the one thing that everybody's like, be happy about the one thing, as opposed to the Urbana thing and I mean, there is diversity, and if you think about how MTD runs and around transportation and accessibility, so I would and I know Marlon would agree, like, it could be multiple structures, and think about what that means to a community that has felt like they've been offered one thing and have been told to sort of make that work. But there is so much diversity. So voice and choice is one of the core principles in a trauma-informed community. And I think where we can allow for voice and choice, where we co-create with the community could be transformative. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to quickly thank you for being here tonight. I've learned so much from you over the years, and knowing that with your evidence-based practices that you tend towards, that you have evaluated and support the programs that have been presented tonight means a lot to me as far as, I guess, expectations and appreciation that they are set up to succeed and that they've done this work, and seeing everybody come together and seeing your blessing, I guess, is very meaningful to me. So again, thank you for speaking to us tonight, and it's good to see you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate your energy and work that you've been involved with this. And I think you're absolutely right. We have to look at all areas to try to figure out how best to deal with these families and these young people. Some of the things that I know of, because they're connected to the county, like I talked about with this youth assessment center and Rosecrans. I know there's a discussion earlier about people not feeling like they want to be involved in some of those things. Head Start has counselors, those types of things. How do you feel they're working to help, and is there a better way to have them engaged, if you could, please?
That's a great question. So I work closely with the youth assessment, so Lori, with Head Start. So all of those are core partners. All of those people have been through training. What everybody would argue is, A, there's not enough, right? We have a workforce development crisis. So all of what we're offering is workforce development. So part one. Part two is people also don't have the right tools. So we don't have enough people. Rosecrans will tell you they don't have enough clinicians trained in evidence-based practices. Once they're trained in them, they tend to go into private practice. And that turnover creates more harm. And there are structural problems with that. So what, A, we need to improve our capacity and our ability to improve our capacity to do things. We need better work. We needed a real workforce development strategy. So this allows for us to think about some workforce development. We need to build a paraprofessional network. We don't have enough people. We've kept waiting for like only a few people to be a part of the solution, and that isn't going to be a sustainable model. And then, and I know all of the organizations, Rosecrans, Head Start, Youth Assessment Center, are working to be more equitable and to think about being more culturally responsive in their practices. And they will tell you every time there's turnover, it creates more harm. And then people don't want to continue to utilize their structure. So, I mean, again, I want you to be thinking about ARPA funding as infrastructure building, right? So we want to address some of the fires, but we want to build our capacity so that structural problems that we've had, we can do. So, right, if you think about the state children's mental health plan, one of the core priority is workforce development, and it is building more people who can do the work. And it's asking every community to invest in that. So we can't keep going like we don't have enough people to take the jobs when we haven't invested in cradle to career. And so some of the work that First Followers is doing is building workforce development, building peer networks, what we're doing. So we gotta really imagine this work differently. And I didn't mention this, but one of the things as a part of our care model is that we used to do this a bazillion years ago, but we will be bringing everybody who is providing care for families with complex needs who've been impacted by community together for a collaborative conversation around their care needs. And we used to do that a little bit at the detention center, and now we realize, so again, Head Start, the schools, probation and court services, and the youth assessment center have asked for that. But again, we haven't had the staff or the ability to do it. So we'll be sure that people are less likely to fall through the cracks, because many of the young men who are shot in our community have children in Head Start. and have a younger sibling who's at the youth assessment center, and then maybe have a parent that was receiving services at Rosecrance. When we silo them, imagine, we've made them now go to how many different providers? No one sometimes is aware of all of the range of their needs. I have worked with schools that didn't know. I'm supporting a family right now. Kids were involved in a program. They didn't know that mom had been in the hospital for 2 weeks recovering from gunshot, right? Because we don't talk, things are siloed, and then again, we see the symptoms of this fragmented system. So using these opportunities to bring people together in ways that are good, right? Collaborative and strength-based, so that Head Start mom and that Urbana school can all come together and be on the same page, and so that we can leverage resources. So it's like, I got food, you got hotel, you're also making sure the kiddos have somebody to talk to, right? Because again, so many of the survivors are multi-generational, multi-level, and nobody is seeing the whole system.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is discussion of next steps. And as you guys know, the county doesn't, at this point, really have a formal selection process, so I think it's up to us to kind of decide, what would be the best way to make those decisions. I think it's potentially, a number of options. We could do something similar to what the Mental Health Board does. They have an open application process. We could make decisions on, what sort of categories we want to spend X amount in. But eventually we're going to need to make specific decisions about programs to go with. And I just want to see if anybody had any. Stephanie?
I have a really strong opinion that we don't want to just have another grant application system, because all that is going to do then, grants are great, but they don't necessarily encourage people to work together. And if we do, we can infuse money into another grant application system, but I don't think we're going to see any, to the kind of thing that Kim was just talking about. Like, we're not going to see that infrastructure built out. Do you know what I'm saying? If we do that, because each individual grantor will be focusing on the specifics of that grant instead of on a holistic vision. I think what we saw today was a presentation that centered on a holistic vision. And I think figuring out, maybe there's some more people that need to be at the table, because that's always going to be the case. I think it was an impressive list of people that are already at the table. But to me, what I'd like to do with this, if you said to me, like, what do you want to do with this funding, is I would like us as a committee to decide on a specific initiative in the same way that Champaign County did. A specific initiative that addresses specific issues that we then say we're going to put resources to those issues. And the one piece that I do think Champaign County is missing, or City of Champaign, is missing, is the facility piece. And I do appreciate the idea. Maybe it is not one facility. Maybe, it is a facility in Rentoul and a facility, a couple of different facilities. And I would be the first to say I'd be totally fine with that. But for me, quite frankly, like funding something like H3, funding a staff member at the county whose job is to do this, and then specifically trying to address facility needs is what personally I would like to do. And I think instead of reinventing the wheel, if there are more partners that are not at this table, bring them to this table underneath a model that we're saying we're going to fund it, right? Yeah.
Jim?
Thank you. I understand where you're trying to go, Stephanie. The question is how do we quantify that? how much will it cost? How long will it take? I mean, when you're saying a facility, you know, I don't know that they've brought us a picture of what that would look like to be able to fund, or individual parts of it. And the construction right now, as you probably know from the trades, is crazy.
So as I said before, they did give us a very specific budget on the programmatic piece, and then it included a piece that I think is too small for the facility. So what I'm suggesting we do is that this committee, working with the community groups, collectively over time develop exactly what you're talking about, so that we don't just say, hey, go forth and find a facility, because I feel like that's a pretty heavy lift, but instead that we as a committee drive that, and that it's going to take some time, right? You know, we would need to think about really seriously, are we looking at one facility? Are we looking at multiple facilities? You know, I will say this, I don't know that the county has the capacity to maintain the facility. So just like we did with the Head Start, we funded Head Start with the agreement that that Head Start is going to fund so that we cannot get there tonight, right? So I think if you said to me process, I would see this as a two-tiered process. One, facility, and that's a long-term issue. Long-term in that we need to get it done within the scope of ARPA, much like the broadband infrastructure is, that we as a county address and think through the facility issue. The second is one targeted umbrella initiative for programs, much like the city of Champaign did. So I think that they're two separate pieces. But the facility piece would then serve the program piece. But I feel like that's a really heavy lift, and I want to make sure that we have enough resources for that lift. And even based on the model that we have in front of us with all of the partners, we have the capacity. I mean, looking at the model and the budget that we get, and I think that there's people that we could add to this, but looking at it, it's about 2.4 million roughly in just programmatic money. And, you know, we have been explicit, at least in the Democratic caucus, that we intend to spend 4.1 million on this initiative, and that commitment has not changed. We still have 1.5 million left. So that leaves us roughly $1.6 million, which would allow us to put real money to a facility or a couple of smaller facilities, and to fund out a staff person whose job it is to help coordinate all of this. Because I just think reasonably, if we think that this committee is going to be able to coordinate all of it, is silly, to be perfectly frank. And to Kim's point about Karen, I'm so sorry. Karen, I'm so sorry. I'm making Karen Sims like, I apologize. I'm collapsing the name. Sorry about that, Karen. But to Karen's point that and to Jim's point, like, we do have the Youth Assessment Center. We do have what we do with Rosencrantz. We do have some workforce development, but I do think it's pretty siloed off, and a lot of times the community doesn't know that it exists, right? If we had one person in the county whose job was to help facilitate those connections, I think that could be a really important piece of it, because what we don't want to do is we want to build on what we're already doing, not just have it being duplicated in ways that we don't even know.
I'm trying to formulate my thought because I'm not sure. I know we're just talking about next steps. I guess I don't see where us building a position at the county level is going to be beneficial right now. I think long term, like, I see it as something that we should be doing, and that's what's going to get us to somewhere like where the city of Champaign is. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at like the infrastructure that something like the H3 group has already put in place, and the work that they've already done to build a program, I think. And I feel like they're ahead of us already. Like, we'd be starting at the ground floor, and like, how is that going to provide a benefit within the terms of the ARPA period, I guess?
So to speak to that, because I really strongly think it will, because first of all, we as a county, and I completely respect Marlon's ability and knowledge in how to do program evaluation, but you don't have the person running the program evaluating the program. We as a county need to have that infrastructure. We as a county can go after specific grants that in some cases they cannot do. But also we already have pieces, so we already have the Youth Assessment Center. We already funded the gun buyback program. We already funded the reentry program. We have these small business pieces which are separate from what we've heard today. One of the things that the small business group talked about is Champaign has this incredible system, which First Followers was a partner to register minority-owned businesses that then to do business with the city. And the city of Champaign is now offering that system to other places, to the county and stuff like that. So that could fall under this group. One of the things that Samantha and I have talked about at length is the sleep program, which is the program to put like lights in people's house, you know what I mean, on people's lawns, and to do that into places that are high crime areas, right? First Followers can't do that, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they can't be the person that's coordinating the city's or the county's youth assessment center. And we have a grant person right here, but we don't really have anyone on staff that's directing that grant person with experience in this field. And kind of we're just like letting them hang out, which is, on us because we aren't giving him marching orders. So for me, having somebody like Rachel who sees all of these threads, right? Because it's too much to think that any one community organization is responsible for this. You know what I mean? Like the reason that the city of Champaign has this is because they have staff. So I do think that, like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I hear what you're saying, but I think that if we want the community groups to focus on the services, then we need somebody who's going to do those other pieces, and that the H3 is a piece of a bigger addressing community violence piece.
So do you see it as, I guess I'm answering my own question here, I think you do see it as somebody who is a partner with the organizations that are already doing the work, and trying to build upon that by finding more money for these organizations that are already doing the work?
Oh yeah, let me be real clear. I think that an initiative to address community violence, that the solutions have to come from the community, that listening to the organizations that for years have been doing the work in the community, that they know what the solutions are. They just need the resources to get them done, right? So what I'm not suggesting is that we have like some sort of like community violence czar, you know what I mean, at the county that is like, you shall do this. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough. But we, I think, need somebody that is evaluating this, what is happening, and then figuring out what are the other pieces that we need. But not, like, I'm not suggesting that we would have like a community person who was in charge of H3. That is absolutely not what I'm suggesting.
I think one thing that is very important in the outreach to the community is that the help has to come from someone that look like them. That is very, very important. And so when she pointed out that I think that was, let me make sure I got it right. First Followers, Dr. Purnell, that she has other clinical licensed counselors that look like us. Also after the trauma with Miss Karen Sims, after the trauma, who is approaching that family? They must look like us. In order for you to get a good response, you have to definitely keep that in mind. I know one thing that Jim has repeated so many times in the meetings is that we already have this. Well, we already have that. But how successful were those programs is my first question. And then how many of those employees look like us that's actually directly dealing with the public? And that's where we fall short. So if we really are trying to provoke change, we want this to be inclusive with everyone. Ms. Karen Sims, I wrote it down. She says, you want to be become, and belong, right? That touched my heart because that's every community member. You want to feel like you belong in this community. And I think all tonight's presentation was awesome. I think they hit on all the points of the community of what we're experiencing right now, and I think they've addressed all those points. Thank you.
Jim, did you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I just, and I think that, we talk about, this potential staff position. I mean, I would like to see it funded outside of ARPA. I would like it to be something that is going to outlast ARPA and something that, is a permanent commitment from the county. But yeah, that was, so Jim, did you have something to say?
Sure, thank you. I don't know about a position. All the programs that we've ever done, we've granted out. We don't have the infrastructure and the people. Creating that system, I think, is problematic. We just don't have the people like the city of Champaign or Urbana does to do these programs. I only say that because I think if we want it to be effective and that we want to provide the funds, and that's the first time I've heard that $4 million number, all I've heard is this is a $1.5 million, and you can hold your breath because I know you're going to disagree with me. But the and the facility, we have enough facilities. We've given away enough facilities. I think it's better to focus on the programs, what they're doing, and help them the best way that we can to ensure as quickly as possible that we can have an impact on what they're trying to accomplish, not create a facility that might take 2 years to complete. I don't know that there's facilities out there. RPC has other programs too. We haven't listed any of those. They don't get mentioned. We do have a reentry program which competes with first followers, especially with IDOC, that we have counseling. We have a lot of things that could be brought and involved, but we need to list them all, get them involved, and work to move things forward. Thank you.
I believe that RPC also received some of their own funding, which is part of the reason why they didn't come to us as part of this initiative, but I could be wrong on that.
I think you're confused. Maybe I've said it incorrectly. I wasn't saying that they didn't get their own funding. I was saying that we provide funding to them, and they have programs for job training and everything else that they could use. I just want to make sure.
Stephanie?
So a few points. I know, and it's super possible you weren't there. I know that Steve Summers went to your caucus and expressly said about the 4.1 million, made sure that it was abundantly clear. I also know that in the special budget finance meeting that we talked about it at length and have talked about it at additional other meetings. And if you want, I could get you the timestamps on that. So that it has been expressly clear, that piece of it, that we were doing 10% of the funding for this initiative. Secondly, to your point, I totally actually do agree with you on one thing. Getting money into the hands of the community service organizations that are actually doing the work needs to be our priority. And I don't think that waiting on the facility, that's why I think that these should be seen as separate things. To the RPC point, why I think it's so important to have an institutionalized staff member at the county is because I do think that RPC has some amazing programs. Just let's think about LIHEAP. Do you know what I'm saying? What we need is a person who can help. It is, again, impossible to think that the community service organizations are going to be doing everything. But let's be real. One of the things that's a stressor is if you can't pay your electric bill, right? And so having somebody at the county whose job is to make sure that people that are coming through these programs also know about those other resources and the job programs that do exist within the county, and then could speak into that space and say, hey, listen, maybe you got this great job program, but the reason nobody's coming is because, to Samantha's point, there isn't somebody that looks like the people in the community, right? That is why, like, having one person whose job it is to make and think through those connections, I think would be super important, right? To that end, I do think, what I guess I would like to hear from everybody on the committee, and recognizing we have some folks that aren't here, is I think some suggestions on like paths forward is what does everybody think? Like, do we want to pursue a facility or set of facilities? Yes or no? And if we're not ready to answer these questions at this meeting, maybe we bring them to the next meeting. Do we want to fund one umbrella thing, or do we want to try to fund like some sort of open grant, initiative? For me, I think, and since I'm suggesting this, I will say I am prepared to speak on both of those two things. And then what do we think about the staff member? So I obviously have spoken at length that I like the staff member, that I like the facility, and I like the umbrella. I do think I am incredibly impressed with all of the organizations that are in the umbrella. I think we as a committee could help brainstorm other folks that maybe need to be here. One of the things in specific, I definitely want to center Black voices and Black programs. I do think having a piece, some sort of piece that addresses violence in the Latinx community is important, and I think that that's something I'd like to see come under the umbrella. But again, I don't, by no means do I think like we have to have everything here today. But that would be one thing that I'd want to brainstorm and bring to the next meeting. So that's me.
Didn't First Followers say something about a brick and mortar in their proposal, right? Right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that.
My suggestion is they just didn't ask for enough money. That they didn't, that it's in here. No, it's in here. It is. It's $250,000, which to Jim's point, I think is maybe a little bit low given current construction costs. And given that this isn't the whole $4 million, I think us thinking as a committee, thinking through that piece a little bit more, because I think it just frankly is going to cost more money than that. Or if we want to do a couple of facilities.
I think I've come around on, not on the facility piece so much as the staff person piece. I think funding a staff person for 3 years or 2 years, whatever, within the bounds of ARPA, and then building on ways to expand that into a permanent position within that time so that it's not ARPA dependent, I think is doable. I agree with Mr. McGuire on that facilities is not a priority for me right now. I feel like unless the organizations tell us that's their number one priority, I feel like they've come to us with so many other programs and needs that were spoken about before a facility tonight, that like the mental health pieces and the job training pieces, I think are going to provide more immediate benefit than a brick and mortar facility at this point. And I feel like we're in emergency mode. Like, not only because we're on a deadline on the spending, but just because our community, our county is in emergency mode. But yes, I can see the benefit of a staff person to help coordinate on our end, to help direct grant applications, to help build more and provide more so that these groups can do more.
I guess I'd say, I've always felt pretty supportive of the facility aspect. I think for starters, they can't do all these programs at the park. They got to have somewhere to be able to do this stuff. But when it does come to ARPA funds, it does take into account that, construction projects, particularly if you're building something new, we could enter a discussion of whether it'd be better to renovate or build new. But it does take a while, so that's one of the aspects of ARPA that actually goes beyond those 3 years. And the point here is to try to build a permanent infrastructure. So I think having a fixed permanent location is something that would really benefit that. Anybody else?
Thank you. I guess I have no idea what the facility would cost in nobody else at the table has. I look at this as, first, I'm not sure if the number came from 4 million because someone said 10% of the program, and we had no idea what the program was here in the county, so no one really clearly understood that. But I only use that to explain that, you know, I do purchasing at the university. I don't buy things unless I know how much they cost. But you do that because you want success in a program. I think that the program and the services that they want to provide, which I think First Followers always had a strong grassroots organization in this county, that we build a plan, we find out what best funds them, that we are best capable of accomplishing, and figure out what that is so that we are more successful. So they are more successful longer than when the ARPA funds run out. That's my feeling. But I need more information to make that decision.
So what if they just took the new facility off the board and just went and found a facility that they could move into? Do you think that they would be up for that? You know, I mean, just the fact of just being able to start something now, you know, would you be open for?
Wait, and let me just be real clear. I'm not like suggesting we wait on the programs for the facility.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
suggesting we decouple them.
But I
So,
just
yeah.
feel like it
But,
would work better
yeah.
if it, yeah.
So the idea in the budget or the proposal that we put forth, we know that the facility is going to take time. And we also understand that the funds coming from ARPA, when it's infrastructure, it can be extended to 2026. So 2023, part of this year and going in 2023 is more or less hiring a consultant or a contractor to help us find a facility, whether that's a new build or a facility that we can renovate and bring it up to code or what have you. So it's not like it's a priority, but we understand that it's going to be a long-term priority. And I say it's a priority because the ultimate goal is to have a one-stop shop. And of course, all the organizations that have signed up are already doing programs, but they want to build capacity around that. But the ultimate goal is to bring everybody under one roof that's providing services so that we won't lose anybody through the cracks through the referral or, like Karen put it, our flawed infrastructure that we've seen over time. And from our vantage point as First Followers, for example, when a person comes into the drop-in center, we understand that there's layers and layers and layers of issues that they have. And we can only provide a handful of services. And so when we refer somebody to mental health or something like that, we don't have a strong relationship or know who's doing what. And so we're trying to remove all of that out of that equation by establishing long-term a one-stop shop.
Thank you.
Can I address that last comment? Because I think that was what I was trying to say before. While I understand we want specific services in this building, there really isn't the medical staff in the county and the other organizations that have been coming here asking us for funds to fund those, or bonuses or retainment funds, because there isn't the staff to do that, especially the medical staff that are involved, that you're suggesting are in separate locations than Rosecrans or other facilities that provide those programs. I think it's duplicative. It goes back to siloing that we talked about. I understand why you want it. I know you do support and training and education and things like that, so I can understand why you want a building. But I don't know that the county or community has the staff or the funds, not just the county, but I mean the county holistically, the city, the mental health providers, all those people to do what you're discussing.
All right. You know, obviously there's a lot for us to figure out. When it comes to the next steps, I mean, I don't really have a timeline set for when we would make a final proposal to the full board. I don't know if it's going to take, one or two more meetings. But I think that at the next meeting, maybe we should discuss more specific spending amounts. I think that we should look at, I think, Stephanie, you kind of broke it down really well with, do we want a facility? Do we want one project? Do we want an open application process? Do we want to fund a staff person? And I think those are really, it seems like the questions to figure out. So I don't know if we want to make a recommendation next month, but also next month discuss exactly, what we want each thing to look like, or whether or not we want each thing, and, how much money it's going to take. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on doing it that way.
Yeah, I do think, to Jenny's point, that we are a community in crisis, and I think we need to make an informed decision, but not a forever decision. You know what I mean? Like, we need to make decisions. And so I do think maybe coming to the next meeting, thinking about those three questions and what that would look like, also coming to the next meeting, and if there's somebody that isn't at the table, either reaching out ahead of time to first followers and making suggestions, or bringing them to the table, I think would be a really important piece. I think, and then like actually coming ready to do some work and thinking about like specifics, so that we could get to the point where we are, and if there's specifics that we don't have answers to, figuring out by which we're going to do them. Does that seem like a good plan?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think like kind of, working through the details of it.
Okay.
I mean, even the staff position, like maybe developing more of a specific, because obviously that's something that we've only talked about at this point, but, having us, detailed, the different aspects of exactly what they would do. I think that would probably be a good idea. Mm-hmm.
He was.
You asked about Tracy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to announce at the beginning of the meeting. He kind of last second couldn't make it tonight. Okay. He is Megan. I think Megan's going to share with us the PowerPoint he was going to give. Okay. And he mentioned possibly speaking at public comment at county board this week.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
great.
he was very disappointed not be able to make it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking like, wait a minute, we forgot something. Okay, thanks.
All right. I'm sorry, what? Jim? Sorry.
If we're getting done to let you finish first, I want to say something to Stephanie.
So are you talking about
Oh, no, when are we ready or done, or I didn't want you to.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you still want to discuss next steps, yeah.
No, the only thing I was going to bring up that I think that I can beat Stephanie at chess as I did at darts. So,
I will say this. My grandfather taught me chess when I was about 8 years old, and I remember when he taught it to me, he like walked me through it all, and at the end, all we had left was our two kings, and I was like, what kind of game is this? I was very angry, but I've played a lot of chess in my life. I really like it. I'm not good. I'm not a very good offensive player, but man, I can make you chase me around that board for hours. Usually when I start having a offensive plan, I focus on that so much that I like let my defense go and my flank gets taken out. But I do want to say I just really appreciate the time and care that everybody's put into this. I think Jenny said when we started this conversation, it was very conceptual, and seeing it materialize over time is really impressive. And I also want to say to everybody who's been doing the work, often without resources, just because it's the work of their heart, you have my respect, and you all have been standing in the gap in this community, often sometimes alone for too long. And I just thank you for coming today.
All right. The next agenda item is the next meeting date. And looking at next month, So I assume that that's probably the way we want to go about it. So give me a second, I'm trying to pull up the county's annual calendar. Yeah, yeah, Megan, if you could help with that. Oh, I will say I think the primary is on Tuesday.
It's the 28th.
Yeah, the 28th.
Yeah.
So last
Tuesday,
week.
the 21st is the 4 weeks from now time. That would match up with the week of the board meeting.
Mhm.
I can't even believe I'm asking this. Something has gone bonkers. The 23rd is county board next month?
Yeah.
Somehow it's not on my calendar, which is alarming. Right. Could you do the Tuesday?
Tuesday, the 21st.
Okay. I know for Aaron, I know right now a lot of the farmer, like when it's not raining, it's
I think
just,
that's
it's
where-
like during the folks that farm, when it's not raining, man, they're out there until it's dark.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's doing. And I think Diane's out of town.
She's in
Texas. Yeah.
Would you like me to send them a message to make sure that they are available that date?
For the
Yeah, I mean,
21st?
yeah, we could set a tentative date right now. But so I think the 21st, you want to do that again?
At what time?
So I mean, is 6 or 6:30 more convenient for you guys? Like, I personally feel like doing things like a little bit later at 6:30 is more convenient for me. I don't know where you guys are.
Yeah, if we meet at 6, for me personally, it's run, pick up children, get them home, not have time to eat dinner, come here, get crabby because I haven't eaten dinner.
Yeah.
I would appreciate 6:30 start.
Okay. And Megan, is that?
Yes,
so good?
I would prefer 6:30.
Okay, cool. Yes.
One thing I would like to see, and I don't even know how to go about finding this before the next meeting, is I guess kind of a understanding of where to, like, what grants are out there. Like, what is there already immediately, like, that we know about that a position that would be funded out of this could start working on? Like, I know that's part of it, is that we don't know all this stuff, but like in the next month, are there places we can kind of do some cursory research?
Well, we have a part-time grant person named Michael Carter who comes out of this world. And I think what I can do, or what we can do, is I don't supervise this person, but we could ask Darlene to task them with that. Because, I mean, doing the research about what grants are out there is a pretty heavy lift. And there are grants that are out there. The other reason I think funding a model and compared to, like, if we want to talk about sustainability, and this is the last thing I'll say on that, is if we just give money to individual organizations, we as a county aren't going to receive additional grants because that is not how the grant world works. If we want to have sustainability, we have to have a thing that they can fund. Like, they got to have like a thing that has a name, you know what I mean, that they can fund out. And so I think that that's really important and is a really important piece of this puzzle is and I used to work in this world for years and years and years. Like, coalitions, especially in today's funding landscape, coalitions get funded. And coalitions get funded from big funders. Individual atomized things do not receive the same amount of funding. They just don't. People nowadays want to see that coalition piece. Yes, exactly.
I guess there's one more piece of research that I might be interested in is, and that's, I don't know if this is something that would even be possible in a month, but like when RPC came to us, they had a real estate plan, like they already had a piece of property in mind that they were looking to purchase. And so they had that price tag and they knew it was going to be the 1.5 million. Is that something that within the next month, is there real estate already available in the county that would be appropriate for the needs of a one-stop shop? And what does something like that run? And I know there's not a lot of real estate available right now.
Oh, no, that's why I think we should do this as a separate piece. Like, I think we should do the programmatic piece. I personally think we need a facility, but I think we need to hire a consultant to do a community needs you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that we need to actually put the money into doing the facility. Unless, Karen, did you have something to add? Oh, could you come to the mic? Sorry, there are several larger initiatives that I think that the facility conversation is a part of, right? There's the Campus Community Compact, there's another countywide, and so I think that and there are other grants that people are looking at. So I think looking at where the county leverages its resources as a part of other initiatives around space is an important thing. But I think you can't, we keep saying this, you can't silo this conversation because there are several other conversations that are similar that you could be leveraging these resources along with other resources to really make something work. Because if not, if you see this in isolation, I mean, this is the problem with the blueprints, right? Like, it is funding Champaign work, and we are about to roll out a large response where we will be telling people in other places in the county, your money didn't cover this, so we're not coming, right? So you want to be thinking about how this is a part of a larger whole, right? And to that point, right, that, you know, and this is something we've talked at length about, is we don't want to leave out places like Rentoul.
Absolutely.
Right?
Or Thomasboro.
Right, right. We don't want to act as if community violence only happens in one place. And the city of Champaign is doing the work. Maybe Urbana is. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, we do want to make sure that we have resources that are going to all parts of the county. And to your point, like, I don't think the facility question is something we can answer in a month. Like, I think that would need to be a prolonged conversation that had the partners in place. When we came really close to the one-stop shop, it was the Urbana, one of the lieutenants or something over in Urbana, Carl Hospital. There was a plan in place. They came to the county and just said we needed $1 million. And then that coalition fell apart, right? So it was definitely not something that the county was doing on their own. So for me, it's more, do we want to pursue the facility or do we not want to pursue the facility? And then taking the time to get it right, right? And I think that that's a really important piece. But, like, I don't know that we could possibly have an answer. No, in a month. No. Like, what I'm saying is, like, a decision point on, are we going down that path or not? Not where's that path going to lead us to? Because, again, I agree. I don't think that should totally just come from the county.
Right. And I feel like part of my ability to answer on, are we going down that path, is, and I can do this research on my own this month, is to just even see what is out there. Like, I know with the RPC thing, they were looking at lease rates and stuff, and we were looking at lease rates and things for the county when we were looking at purchasing County Plaza. So, yeah, I can look back at some of that and try to do some research.
All right, where are we going next? Whoa, technically you guys were really out of order because we're on next meeting, but no, it's okay, it's good. Chair's report, there's no chair's report. There's no other business. Call this meeting adjourned.